history writes about wars, peace, and treaties. In other words, it doesn't pay much attention to romantic love stories. That's why it's hard to find the grand love story between Ottoman Sultan Abdülaziz and French Empress Eugenie in official sources. However, many books confirm this story. Here is the forbidden love story between Ottoman Sultan and the French Empress, despite the French Emperor. It was the summer of 1867. For the first time, an Ottoman Sultan set foot on foreign soil for a reason other than expedition. Ottoman Sultan Abdulaziz, who had accepted the invitation of French Emperor Napoleon III to attend the opening of the International Exhibition in Paris, was welcomed by the emperor himself with a grand ceremony at Paris Station. They then proceeded to the Tuileries Palace with the Ottoman caravan. Upon their arrival at the palace, Empress Eugenie, Napoleon's wife, was waiting at the top of the stairs to welcome Abdulaziz and the Ottoman cavalcade. The empress was dazzling with her elegant dress, nobility, shoulder-length blonde hair, and green eyes. Sultan Abdulaziz, who had been interested in sports since his childhood, especially wrestling, stood out with his tall stature and majesty. The empress took Sultan's arm and led him to the reception hall. According to rumors, they couldn't take their eyes off each other during dinner that evening, and there was a spark between them. Empress Eugenie also captivated Sultan Abdulaziz at first sight. According to sources, the Sultan wasn't interested in anything else in Paris, where he stayed for 11 days, and all his thoughts were on Eugenie. The members of the Ottoman delegation also noticed this, but eventually the visit came to an end, and it was time to leave. As the Sultan was boarding the ferry to London, the next stop on his trip, Emperor Napoleon and Empress Eugenie came to see him off. According to rumors, Eugenie looked like she would cry if they touched her. In fact, Sultan Abdulaziz's situation wasn't much different. It was as if there were things they both wanted to say to each other before they parted, but couldn't. Eugenie de Montijo, whose real name was Eugenie Maria de Montijo de Guzman, was born in Granada, Spain in 1826. She came from a noble Spanish family and was known as the Countess of Teba in the city where she grew up. She received a good education in Paris, where she moved with her mother and siblings in 1834. By the time she was in her 20s, she had become one of the most famous and beautiful women of her time, with countless admirers following her because of her legendary beauty. On April 12, 1849, at a reception given by Prince Louis Napoleon, then President of the Second Republic at the Tuileries Palace, she had the opportunity to meet the future emperor and her future husband Napoleon for the first time. Napoleon immediately fell in love with Eugenie, unable to resist her beauty. After overthrowing the Republic in a coup d'etat and becoming emperor, Napoleon and Eugenie were officially married on January 29, 1853. Eugenie was now the Empress of France. The paths of these two important figures who parted in France with heavy hearts, never to meet again, suddenly crossed again 2 years later. Empress Eugenie had been invited to the inauguration ceremony of the Suez Canal, and before traveling to Egypt on the emperor's special ship, she decided to stop by Istanbul and stay there for a few days. Sultan Abdulaziz was very excited about this visit, and preparations began. He immediately had the Tuileries Palace prepared for his esteemed guest. He personally took care of every detail of the visit program. He welcomed the Empress at sea with the Sultan's boat, even before she set foot on land, and honored her by firing 101 cannons in her honor. When they landed, precious gifts were waiting for the Empress. The Empress brought her own picture to Sultan Abdulaziz as a gift in a frame, specially prepared for him, gilded with gold and decorated with precious stones. Sultan Abdulaziz took a very close interest in the Empress, who stayed in Istanbul for a week between October 13th and the 20th, and visited Istanbul to her heart's content. Various events were organized in honor of the Empress, and magnificent banquets were given. However, In the last days of the Empress's visit, a rumor started to spread in Istanbul. According to the rumors, on the night of October 17th, Sultan Abdulaziz took the Empress's maids of honor and aid away from her on one pretext or another, gave permission to all the staff of the Tuileries Palace, and at dusk, they boarded the Sultan's boat from Dolmabahce to the opposite shore of the Bosphorus and spent the whole night with Empress Eugenie until dawn. It is also known that the Sultan returned to his palace very tired and exhausted in the morning and gave orders not to wake him up until noon. The rumors increased to such an extent that Sultan Abdulaziz's mother, Pertebnil Valid Sultan, angrily shouted at Eugenie, who came to visit the harem the next day, "Woman, don't you have a husband? Why don't you go to your homeland?" And according to French sources, she went even further and slapped her. Finally, Empress Eugenie's visit came to an end, and she happily and contentedly left Istanbul for Egypt on October 20th. However, the very special moments that took place during this visit were passed down by the public as rumors for years. Even the famous Turkish historian Murat Barachi wrote 2 separate articles on this subject. However, the reality and details of these rumors, which were described as gossip, were revealed in the book The Palace with the Blue Column, written by Pablo Martín Acero, director of the Spanish Cervantes Institute. With the publication of this book, this love story and what happened on the night of October 17th was confirmed, and the question marks on the pages of history were completely erased. But unfortunately, this story did not have a happy ending. Sultan Abdulaziz and the Empress never met again, and their faces never smiled. Empress Eugenie was first exiled to England with her husband Napoleon III, who was deposed, and then she lost her husband and then her only son in the war. On the Istanbul side of the story, Sultan Abdulaziz was first deposed and then assassinated. In 1911, 42 years after the first visit, Empress Eugenie visited Istanbul once again, this time at the age of 85, and was once again a guest at Beylerbeyi Palace. During her meeting with Sultan Risat, the Sultan of the time, she said that she wanted to see Yusuf Izzettin Effendi, the son of Sultan Abdulaziz, whom she had seen 42 years earlier as a little boy. This request perhaps meant saying goodbye to an old love for good. She died 9 years after this visit in 1920 at the age of 94 and was buried in Spain next to her husband and son.